Alright, let's talk about it. Power Rangers Mystic Force. Mystic Force is a season based around magic and mysticism. So if you're into things like Dungeons and Dragons, Harry Potter, things of that nature, I think you would enjoy Mystic Force. One thing that makes this season stand out in particular, now depending on who you're asking, this could be a very good or bad thing, is that the main five aren't the main focal of the season. Now sure, each ranger gets a specific episode and time to shine, but what I mean is we don't really know much about the main five with the exception of one. Sure, we get hints and backstory to some of the rangers and their life before becoming rangers, but not too much to go off of. Like we know Chip and Vita went to school together since they were kids. We know Vita and Madison are sisters. We know Xander moved here from another country. And we get to know each of the Rangers' characteristics, obviously. But outside of that, we don't get to know much about them. Instead, we get a heavy focus on Nick, Udana, Dagron, and Liambo, and their relationship together and how it intertwines with the Mystic War that happened years ago. I mean, even Nick still has some mystery as we've never actually seen his adoptive parents. But besides that, the story they tell I find very interesting. I had some mutuals basically joking around to me saying you can basically cut up Mystic Force into 3 seasons. And how it's written after you watch it, they're actually not wrong. So each quote-unquote season is broken into the different bosses that come into Mystic Force. First you start off with Mordecai, then you get to Imperia/Kalendor, and then you finish off with the 10 Terrors, which finally leads to the Master. And for what it's worth, I actually like this cut up. It still to me feels like one complete story. It's just told in multiple parts to where you could cut it off and possibly finish the story there. One thing I would say I didn't really care for in this series were the villains, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2, that for sure being Korag, and a flip-flop between Necroli and one of the 10 Terrors. Mystic Force has your standard villains of evil for the sake of being evil. I would say the most entertaining out the bunch would probably be Imperius, only because at least to me he has the most personality. Sure, you got the 10 Terrors, but that's 10 different personalities mashing together. Of course you're gonna have some of them clashing. They were fun to watch, but if we're talking one villain in particular, I would definitely give it to Imperius. And one thing I kept iterating to one of my mutuals who's a huge fan of Mystic Force is how overpowered this team is. Just in the first 10 episodes, they soloed, if not all, the Saban era teams, with the exception of maybe a couple here and there. I definitely enjoyed Mystic Force, but on to the next one, Operation Overdrive.